The mapping that's been presented here is a way into that question of effectiveness and development effectiveness, and enables one to identify where we're falling short and where we need to do more work. And increasingly, I think we have to see most of the big international challenges as ones that can only be solved by that sort of variable geometry of multilateralism. And finding mechanisms to make that variable geometry work is really difficult. And I think what we've seen here today is a really good example of how a really useful tool for making the complex geometry of international cooperation actually practical and effective and efficient. And so a very useful model for other countries to adopt, and hopefully one that contributes to Egypt's own development more effectively.
I'd like to take the opportunity to commend her for what I think is really outstanding effort, work to bring together. As you mentioned, Erik, it's very timely. We hope, really, it becomes a template for other countries as well to adopt through accountability, through transparency, in showing what governments can deliver or are delivering on the various development goals. I think one can make an outreach into that ownership, because without ownership, these are very difficult times in which to engage in significant policy changes.
It is a pleasure to join this event hosted by the London School of Economics to launch an eye-opening new publication, Stakeholder Engagement Through Economic Diplomacy, by Dr. Al-Mashat. It is in this context that I would like to congratulate Dr. Al-Mashat and her co-author on the launch of this new book. It offers a detailed account of Egypt's journey to put in place multilateral, multidisciplinary platforms. Such multi-stakeholder platforms can support governments worldwide to strengthen the alignment of national development plans, budgets, and implementation systems with the SDGs. And I expect that this pertinent new publication will prompt much needed discussion on how we can better leverage international cooperation to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, both far and wide, both globally and nationally.
I was in a meeting the other night where the Egyptian example of the multi-stakeholder platform was actually emphasized by the World Bank when they gave examples of successful country platforms. So it is extremely important project and something that we have a lot to learn from the Egyptian experience. So thank you very much for that presentation. I actually think this is a very good example of where a country takes ownership over this process and make sure that all the difficult choices that have to be made have to be owned by the countries, and they have to take responsibility ultimately for these choices, of course, and that's why ownership is so important.
I fully endorse the effort of Egypt to put together in this book called Stakeholder Engagement Through Economic Diplomacy the narrative that economic diplomacy and development cooperation must be pursued in a structured way. I agree with the assessment that an institutional, transparent, and inclusive country-led framework is important to facilitate constructive dialogue among all stakeholders involved in development cooperation. I am happy that Egypt has taken the lead on this.
The book proposes an actionable framework for coordinating official development assistance and also implementing the SDGs. The multi-stakeholder platform model, which was described in the book, is a tested, successful model, already tested, of realizing this whole of society approach which is required to realize the SDGs. So let me conclude by congratulating once again Her Excellency the Minister for this book. which will be an invaluable resource to the development community. And I want to also say at the end that we at the UN family look forward to building on and also implementing the analytical principles of economic diplomacy advocated in the book. Thank you very much for the opportunity to contribute to the discussion.
One point I would like to raise on economic diplomacy and stakeholders' expectation. We need to take in consideration ESG, SDGs, corporate social responsibility, because all wants to invest for good, and everything we do has to do for good. My last point, to summarize, is that today more than ever, what is important for stakeholders and for economic diplomacy is precisely because now the world is starting to recover, to reopen, to rebuild. We see this neo-renaissance. It's important, and it's time to rethink the importance of trust. At no time has it been more tested or more valued in our leaders and each other. Trust is the basis for connection, and trust is physical, trust is emotional, trust is digital, trust is financial, trust is ethical, and I think it's very important that we keep that in mind. Thank you very much.